We're going to go over lessons 310 and 311 today, so you will need your journal. We are on page 143 to get started, so if you want to take a minute, look at journal page 143. If you look at the math message, go ahead and complete that first one. So it's 70%. Go ahead and pause the video. See if you can complete and solve at least these questions right here, and then go ahead and pause. And when you're done, you can start the video again. Okay, here's what you should have gotten. 70% can be written as a fraction because percents are written over 100. So if I can put this to, all right, here we go. So percents are written as fractions over 100. So I could change my percent to a fraction, and I could also simplify it and make it 7 out of 10. When I write it as a decimal, go ahead and sing to you. When we do my math alphabet, I sing A, B, C, D, E, F to P, right? We don't care about the rest of those letters. All I really care about is my D and my P. I'm starting at a percent. I'm moving to a decimal, so I move to my left. I can write my number as 70 with a decimal behind it, and that still represents 70. I move it 2 places to the left, and it now becomes decimal point 70 or 70 hundredths. When I write this as a ratio, I simply write it as 70 to 100, or I can write it as 70 to 100. Because this is a 10 by 10 grid, so if I count 10 across and I count 10 down, that means there are 100 spaces. So I can simply use this fraction, 70 out of 100, and I can color in 7 rows of 10. So all of these right here make 70 out of 100. Now, if we look at the second one, hopefully you should be able to do the bottom part. If the decimal is 20 hundredths, I can simply read this decimal as 20 hundredths and write 20 out of 100, which can be simplified to 1/5. If I change it to a percent, I can sing to you again, but I'll spare you the agony of listening to that. So I go from a decimal to a percent, I move to the right. So I take my 20 hundredths, I move 2 places, and it now becomes 20%. When I write it as a ratio, it's 20 out of 100. Now here's the problem this time. When I count, I still have 10 across, but when I count, I only have 5 down. So 10 times 5 is only 50. I can't shade in 20 because 20 out of 50 is not the same thing as 20 out of 100. So what I need to do is I need to find an equivalent fraction. I can do that by cross multiplying, or some of you might see the relationship. To go from 100 to 50, I divide by 2. So when I divide by 20 by 2, I get 10. So therefore, by coloring in 10 box, 10 out of 50 is the same thing as 20 out of 100, and that shows 20% is colored in. I'm going to give you a chance to pause the video, and I would like you to try the last one. When you're finished, unpause. Okay, here's what you should have had for your work. You should have had a decimal 40 hundredths. You should have had 40%, and the ratio was 40 to 100. Now, if you look, I set out my proportion. 40 out of 100 is equal to how many out of 25? Because there's a total of 25 blocks in that grid. So when I cross multiply, I get 100x equals 1,000. When I divide by 100, I get an answer of x equals 10. So therefore, 10 out of 25 is the same thing as 40 out of 100. So therefore, I could go ahead and color all of these in and show that that is 40%. Down at the bottom here, I'm continuing to do the exact same thing. We're comparing how many are shaded out of my total. You'll see that we have a ratio table, but we also can think about this as a proportion, just like we've been doing. So when I look, I see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 shaded out of a total of 10. So 8 out of 10 is how many out of 100? Why are we making it out of this 100 here? Because percents are out of 100. So I'm going to take my ratio of 8 shaded to 10 total. And I'm going to make it a fraction out of 100. So I can either cross multiply and get 10x and get 800 and divide by 10 to get my answer of 80, or some of you might have noticed 10 times 10 is 100, so 8 times 10 is also, or I can do 8 times 10 and get 80. So my percent is 80% because it's 80 out of 100. Go ahead and try B and C, and then when you're finished, pause and you may check your answers. Okay, if I look at my last two problems, so I have 5 out of 25, and you can see that that's equal to x out of 100. I can multiply by 4 and multiply by 4 to get 20 out of 100, which is 20%. Or I could have also cross multiplied. If you look at the last one, I counted 6 out of 8. How do I get 6 out of 8? I can't go easily from 8 to 100, but that's okay. I can cross multiply. And I get 8x equals 600. When I divide by 8, I get an answer of 75. So 75 out of 100 is 75%. Go ahead and flip a Ruski to the next page. We're looking at jeans today. Lucy is opening Lucky Lucy's jean store. She is using data for sales from a similar store to make her decisions. So this is the information we're going to use today to help us. She wants to buy 1,400 pairs of jeans to put in her store, and she's going to use the same ratio as we see from Jeanette's jeans. So if she wants to buy 22% of the jeans as bootcut type jeans, we would want 22% of 1,400. Now, if you look in your interactive binder, you are going to see that we wrote something in there. Part over whole equals is over of. You're going to notice that anytime we use the statement is, the is the part. When we use of, the of is the whole. So we want to know 22% of 1,400. This of is telling me that it's my total. So when I write my part to whole ratio, 22% is 22 out of 100. We want to know how many that is out of 1,400. So I can do some cross multiplying, and I can get 100x. I can do some cross multiplying this direction. When I do my division, I end up getting an answer of 308. So if she buys 1,400 pairs of jeans, 22% of that number is going to be 308 pairs of bootcut jeans. If we tried straight legs and did that next, the straight leg jeans was only 4%. So this one's much different. We want 4% of 1,400. So 4% would be 4 out of 100. We want to figure out how many that is out of 1,400. So I'm going to do some cross multiplying again. 100x. I'm going to cross multiply here, and I'm going to get 5,600. When I divide to get x by itself, I end up getting an answer of 56 pairs of jeans. That would be 4% of the jeans, which would be 56. Go ahead and try slim fit, which is 46%, and wide leg jeans, which is 28%. And when you're finished, you can unpause and check your answers. All right, ladies and gents, boys and girls of all ages, here are your answers. So 46%, I simply set up as 46 out of 100. Percents are out of 100. I figure out if my total is 1,400, put x on the numerator, and I did some cross multiplying, and I got my answer of 644. And then again for the last one, if I set up my proportion, I have it set up here, 28%, do some cross multiplying, and get 100x. This ends up being 39,200. I set up a proportion and take my equation, my numbers. I divide by 100, and I get an answer of 392. go. A couple of these are a little trickier, so let's read and check these out on page 145. Okay, so it says 1 week Lucy ordered 224 pairs of straight leg jeans. This was 80% of the total ordered that week. How many pairs of jeans were in the total order? So I'm solving for the total. So what they are telling me here is 224 is 80% of what total? So 224, here's my word, is, so this number is connecting my percent is an is. We look at part and whole in my interactive binder, is an of, is tells me it's my part. So 80% when I set up my proportion is 80 out of 100%, are always out of 100. We are solving for the total. Typically we've been putting the x in the numerator, but we're going to put in the denominator this time. We want 224 out of whatever my total may be. So again, I'm going to do some multiplying. And when I cross multiply, I get 100, times 224. And I get 22400, so 22,400. Cross multiply the other direction, I get 80x. When I divide by 80, I get an answer and a grand total of 280. So 280 goes right here. That tells me that there are 280 total pairs of jeans. 80% of them would be 224. Moving on to the next problem. Lucy had a sale on her straight leg jeans. The regular price is $39.99. She took 20% off. About what was the sale price? So she took some off, so isn't my cost going to get smaller? So let's think about this. If we take 20% off, we could find 20%, subtract it. But let's also think about it this way. If I ate 20% of the pie here, okay, that piece is gone. What percent of the pie is left? You would tell me there's 80% left, right? It's the same concept with the pie that we're using with the jeans. So if they take 20% off the price, you still have to pay the other 80%, right? So we're going to set this up as 80 out of 100. $39.99 goes in my denominator because I want to figure out how much I pay out of the regular price. When I do some cross multiplying, I get 100 times x gives me 100x. And when I multiply 80 times $39.99, I get an answer of $3,199.20. I'm going to divide by 100. And when I divide by 100, I get an answer. I get x to equal 31,992 thousandths. Now, technically that zero's there, but we can ignore that. However, because this is money, we want to look at this as $31.99. We look at the 2 next to it. It's a 2, so we could just leave it at $31.99. Finally, the last problem says during her best week, Lucy sold 250% of the number of jeans she sold in her worst week. Hint, this means that for every 100 pairs of jeans she sold in her worst week, she sold 250% in her best week. Now, it's really hard to get over a 100. Like, I can't eat more than 100% of the pie. Like, there's only one pie. So, like, if I eat the whole 100%, I ate the whole pie. For some things, depending on what you're doing, okay, it's not something physical that I actually, like, can eat or I can get rid of or something like that. Like when it's talking about growth or it's talking about income or something like that, it's actually possible to go over 100%. So we're going to write my percentage as 250 over 100. Now this one's a little tricky because the percent is greater than 100. My part is actually going to be larger than my whole, which is kind of weird. If she sold 450 on her best week, that is my part. So this is my best week compared to the worst. So we're going to put 450 over here in the numerator, and we're going to solve for the x in the denominator. So when I cross multiply, I get an answer of 45,000. And when I cross multiply in the opposite direction, I get 250x. I divide by 250, and when I do that, I get an answer of 180. So in her worst week, she sold 180 pairs of jeans. In her best week, she sold 450. We are moving on. We're going to turn to lesson 311. We are on journal page 148. If you look at your math message for this lesson on page 148, it tells you in a recent game, the Butler School basketball team took 20 three-point shots. They made 35% of those. How many three-point shots did the team make? So they made 35%. How many they took? So let's set apart the whole. My part represents how many shots they made. Out of my whole is the total. 35% I can rewrite as a fraction, so that fills in 2 of the 4 spots on my proportion. If they took 20 three-point shots, we want to know how many they made. How many they made is my part. I want to know how many it was out of 20. So again, I'm going to do some cross multiplying. When I cross multiply, I get 100x. I get 700. I divide, and I get an answer of 7 shots made. Okay, explaining how I solved my problem. Basically, I set up my proportion and I did some cross multiplication. How many points did the team get from the 3-point shots? Well, each one is worth 3 points, right? So 3 times 7 gives me a total of 21 points. The team scored a total of 35 points with no free throws. A free throw is worth 1 point. A regular basket is worth 2. So they scored a total of 35 points. What percent of the points came from 3-point shots? So again, part to whole. We're solving for a percentage. We know it's 21 they made out of 35 points were our 3 points. So we want to know what percent that is. Well, we can do one of 2 things. We can take 21 divided by 35. We get a decimal. And then you guys know we shift the decimal 2 places to the right to make 60%. Or I could have put 100 here and made this a fraction out of 100. I could have did some cross multiplying, and I got 2100, 35x. I want x to be all by itself, so I divide by this 35 that looks a little sloppy there. I also get an answer of 60. When I put 60 in here, 60 out of 100 gives me 60%. There's one more problem we're going to solve yet with this lesson. So the length of string is 240 centimeters long, and it's cut into 3 pieces. So here's my string. It represents 240 from one end to the other, 240 centimeters. We're going to cut it into pieces. The second piece is 25% longer than the first piece. The third piece is 25% shorter than the first piece. So we're taking that first piece, we're going to make it 25% longer for the second piece, and the third piece is going to be 25% shorter. How long is each piece? Well, if I look up here at my ribbon, my string, and I cut it into 3 pieces, that would make each of the 3 pieces a total of 80, right? So 80 centimeters, 80 centimeters, and 80 centimeters. But I don't believe they said that they were equal. They said that the second piece is 25% longer than the first piece. So that means that we're actually going to take this length of this first piece here, and we're going to take 25% of it, right? Let's make this 25%. And we're going to add that on to this middle piece here. And then the third piece is 25% shorter. So we're going to take this 25% off of this third piece. So essentially what happens, if I back this up a little bit, essentially what happens is we're going to take this piece here, we're going to make 25% of it from this first piece. We're going to actually make it longer. So here and here are where my cuts are. We have to figure out what 25% of 80 is. Oops, I put the 80 at the wrong spot. Sorry, guys. Let's get rid of that there. So when I do some cross multiplying, I end up getting an answer of x equaling 20. So what happens is we added 20 on here. So 180 plus 20 is 100. And then we took 20 away from this 80, making that 60. All together, this adds up to 240 centimeters. So what you're going to do, I'm going to ask you to practice some of this today. Give it a try. We will meet back up on Zoom on Wednesday, and we will keep talking about some of these problems.